Sifuna Edwin Watenya.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to contribute to this particular debate. Mr. Speaker, as you know, I am not a scientist. I am a lawyer. So I will not stand here to argue the science, and in fact, I took great exception to a statement by my brother, Senator Khalwale, that scientists are ethical people. Khalwale went to the same school I did, Musingu High School. They taught history very well there. Mr. Speaker, you will recall the phenomenon of Nazi scientists, the people who came up with the gas chambers that were being used to perpetuate mass murders. Those were scientists, Khalwale. Mr. Speaker, the people who gave us things like atomic bombs, and even recently, there was a discussion on whether the corona pandemic or the coronavirus was manufactured in a lab. We are saying that human beings, irrespective of their training and profession, have the capacity for evil, Khalwale. And especially, Mr. Chair, Mr. Speaker, when you put commercial interests ahead of the human interests. So I am going to refer this House to the legal arguments and leave the science to, I don't want to call Khalwale a scientist, but let's leave it to Khalwale. Mr. Speaker, as a lawyer, I understand that under Article 10 of the Constitution, whenever any state organ, state officer or public officer makes or implements public policy decisions, as grave as this one on the lifting of the ban on GMO, they are bound by the values and principles under Article 10. And Mr. Speaker, I'll refer you to three of these values. Number one is participation of the people, what we usually call public participation. We may argue the science, Mr. Speaker. We should be allowed to argue the science. But what I get Professor Margaret Kamar to be telling us is there was a reason in 2012 why this ban was put in place. If there is new science to show us that this food is safe, all we are saying, Khalwale, is that we are not dumb people. We can be taught. We are teachable people. Show us the new evidence that has now emerged to show that these particular organisms are actually safe. But as it is right now, Mr. Speaker, what we are protesting is a unilateral decision by the government or by the cabinet to lift the ban without having allowed for this broad discussion to happen. Number two, Mr. Speaker, there is a value called patriotism. Patriotism means you love your own people, you love your own country, and you protect your own people. Mr. Speaker, there has been arguments that, in fact, this introduction of the GMOs are going to disenfranchise many farmers because of the question of the technology that is employed in this particular field of genetics, Mr. Speaker. That many of these organisms that have been created out of this process are subject to very serious patents that you cannot even reuse the seeds once you've planted one crop. You have to go back to the person who has the patent to be able to buy that particular crop. Mr. Speaker, that means the government of the day in making this decision is being unpatriotic by failing to protect our very own farmers. We should also, patriotism also means, Mr. Speaker, that you love your people. You cannot love your people and then, as a CS for trade, you stand up and say there are 1,000 ways to die, let's add one more way to die so that Kenyans can have a choice. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, there is the need to protect the marginalized. Mr. Speaker, you've been told here that in other countries, you can label food to say this is GMO and this is non-GMO, and then you have a choice. Mr. Speaker, for the poor people of this country, that is a false choice. As Khalwale told you, that when you are hungry sometimes, Senator Khalwale alluded to it, when you're hungry sometimes, Mr. Speaker, if somebody tells you, okay, there is a packet of unga here, but it is GMO, you have not eaten for 3 days. Mr. Speaker, it's a false choice. We have a responsibility as this House, as a government, to be able to protect the vulnerable by making policies that protect everyone, irrespective of whether they can actually exercise a choice such as that because of their pockets or not. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, as I spoke to this issue last time, I am Catholic, and the Catholic community receives instructions on everything from the Pope. The Pope issued an encyclical on the 24th of May 2015 on this particular subject. It has not changed, Mr. Speaker. I just beg for 1 minute to finish that point. The position...
Senator Sifuna, we are running out of time. Could
1 minute, Mr. Speaker. It's the last point.
Kindly conclude.
Yes.
Kindly.
Mr. Speaker, the position of the Catholic Church, for which Sifuna is a baptized and confirmed member, is that this food called a GMO is a no-go zone for us as Catholics. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Sifuna. Honorable members, I notice that it is 1 minute to 6:30, and we are supposed to adjourn at 6:30. but under Standing Order number 34, I am extending the sitting of the House for